Recording in progress. We're about to hit the live show. There's a little bit of a...
Hey, you need to tilt your camera a little bit because we just see your nose up.
Me?
No, it's me.
No, eat.
It's because I'm slumped back in my chair. First time I've been on screen for like 4 weeks.
Well, Emma.
Hello. Can you
How
hear
are
me
you?
okay? I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
Yes.
Oh, good. Good.
All right.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah. So welcome back to the Lovecraft eZine podcast, everyone. If you're... Never mind, Scott Jackson just answered it for me. Maybe you can check Facebook for me, Alan. Scott Jackson answered on
Will do.
on YouTube. Yeah, Victoria is our not Victoria, I'm sorry. Hour and a half of sleep. Morgan Sylvia is our guest today. And Morgan, you said you'd listen to a couple of these in the background. What we do is, if Alan didn't explain it, what we do is we record live, and some people watch live, and then more people watch later, and then even more people listen later to the recorded version.
Okay.
So that's what's going on. And thank you for being here. Appreciate
Thank you
it.
for having me.
No problem. Morgan Sylvia is the author of a collection titled The Withering Hours, Dark Folk Horror. And so we're going to talk about that and a bunch of other stuff. And we have ways of making Morgan talk, so we'll do that. And Emma Gibbon is here. Good to see you, Emma.
Oh, nice to see everyone.
Yeah. So, like I said, Alan more or less introduced your work to me, your book to me, Morgan, and he said that you and Emma are friends, and so of course we wanted Emma to be here. And thank you, Alan, for getting this set up. Appreciate it.
Right.
So why don't we do quick introductions and then let's talk to Morgan. So I'm Mike Davis. If this is your first time, I'm the unfortunate host of this show. And Matt, you have a prize?
Hi, I'm Matt Carpenter. We do have a great prize today. I got this from an anonymous benefactor. It's a hardcover copy of the Starry Wisdom Library from PS Publishing. Great book. It is so much fun.
It is.
Describing all the Eldritch Library and its provenance. If you want to win this book, send an email to ezineprizes@gmail.com. Put Starry in the subject line. We draw our winner like 6 to 8 weeks after the show, so even if you're listening a month from now, you got plenty of time to enter. Who knows, you might win it.
Yeah, especially with I've been a little behind on getting the audio editions up lately, so I apologize to everyone listening on audio later, and I'm catching up this week. And then from that point on, the video, YouTube and Facebook video viewers and listeners, you're used to getting this every Sunday, whether you watch it on Sunday or not. You know, it's there later in the week or whenever you want to. And I thought, the audio folks deserve the same kind of regular schedule, so I'm going to have that up on Tuesdays from now on. I'll say after this week, because I'm catching up the several that I'm behind. So you guys are going to get a bunch. Well, you already know that if you're listening to this one, because this one's at the end. So anyway, Alan, would you introduce yourself?
Sure. Alan Hughes, teacher, artist, and I do various things on the eZine website.
Yeah. Like, set this up. And Pete Rollick, good to see you.
It's good to be seen. It's been a while.
Yes.
But yeah, Pete Rollick, writer, editor, man about town, working on a whole bunch of secret projects.
Well, what are they?
Well,
You can trust us.
there's a new Lovecraft collection from Weird House that I just pitched.
Cool.
So there's that. There's a story for the HP Lovecraft Film Festival. There's a sword and sorcery story.
This doesn't sound too secret anymore.
Well, I'm not telling you what they're about. I'm just telling you,
Oh, okay.
it's vague looking.
Speaking of which, the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival Kickstarter is probably going to go live next week sometime. If you haven't got tickets, it's a great way to support the festival and get your tickets. We'll let you know when it happens. I'll post it on the Facebook main page.
It is a good thing to do. I wish I could go. I'm just not going to make it.
Yeah, I wish I could go too.
It's September is actually my free month. So
Well, everyone watching, if you're watching on YouTube, that's probably what you usually do. A couple weeks ago, I started streaming on Facebook too, on my personal Facebook page and on the big Lovecraft eZine page. And so that's slowly building up too. So I catch some more people who maybe aren't aware of it. Emma, would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's Emma Gibbon. I'm a writer, a librarian. My most known work is my collection Dark Blood Comes from the Feet. And I've got, short stories and podcasts and poems all over the place.
Now all the TV shows and movies I watched lately about librarians show them as very swashbuckling, traveling around the earth, seeking
The
artifacts.
Librarians show, yeah.
Is this
Yeah.
true? Is what I want to know.
I hate to burst the bubble. We're not that swashbuckling, but we're not quiet. That's the thing that people don't realize about librarians. They're very loud and sweary, turns out, in real life.
Yeah, Laird's significant other is a librarian
Hmm. Yeah.
part-time. So yeah, Morgan, for those out there who don't know who you are, would you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah, I'm Morgan Sylvia. I'm a writer. I primarily write horror, but I also dab in science fiction, fantasy, poetry. I've put out, I believe, 4 poetry collections. I've done had several things adapted into audio, and I worked with Emma on Blood Forest from Realm, which I'm sure we'll probably get into some of those stories later. I also freelance for work, so it's kind of what I do is I write. I sit here and write.
What part of the country are you from?
Yeah.
I'm in Maine.
Oh, so where in Maine? Are you like next to the Big Steve?
I'm about an hour away. So
I see.
I'm in West Gardner, which is right outside the capital. We're all kind of in the lower half of the state. Like the northern half of the state isn't really very populated, but
No, my friend lives in Presque Isle, which is just crazy.
yeah, that's way up there.
And Matt is totally not a stalker, so just
Just look out the window and wave.
Deer out there.
Scott Jackson says on the live chat, librarians are epic drinkers too. Don't ask me how I know that.
I can neither confirm nor deny such reports.
So
Well,
Morgan,
yeah, go ahead, Matt.
could you tell us how you got started in writing? I mean, were you always writing? Was there a big influence for you? Did you go to school for it? What was the story?
Well, I was an only child and I grew up in a somewhat remote area, and my mother was a librarian. So whenever I was like, Mom, I'm bored because I didn't have any siblings to fight with or whatever, she would just be like, read a book. So
Great
I
advice.
read a lot. Yeah, my mom was a librarian actually. So I was reading 2 or 3 books a day and just started writing for fun. And I used to bang out, I guess it's now called fan fiction, but I would write, novels. I literally had a trunk's worth of novels about, bands I was listening to and shows I was watching and that sort of thing. And just always enjoyed it. Actually did pretty well at it in school. I was actually published when I was in 2nd grade. I was picked for some young Maine authors compilation thing, which I just redid my office and I just came across it the other day, but it was a unicorn story set in Popham Beach.
Well, I think you might be ahead
yeah.
of anyone else we've ever interviewed on this show all these years. It's 2nd grade.
Started
So
young.
Yes.
Moves to the top of the scoreboard. Yeah.
Is there anyone who you view as like a big influence in your writing, like that really kind of inspired you, or you?
Too many to list. I mean, from a writing standpoint, I think my earliest influences, I read a lot of fantasy when I was younger. So like Nancy Springer was huge, CJ Sherry, Jane Gaskell. David Eddings, like that kind of 70s, 80s fantasy era. And then as I got older, I just got more diverse. Like Anne Rice was another one that I just kind of sucked up. And then since then, there's so many.
What's your favorite vampire novel of hers?
I gotta go with the original Vampire Lestat, I think.
That one's great. And
It
I like
just,
the
yeah, it was the freshness of it, I think. And
Yeah.
I think I read most of the series, but the last couple, it just started feeling very bloated and kind of like overly done. So I kind of lost track around, I don't know, what was it, Memnock or, but the first three, just brilliant work.
there's one I'm blanking, like I said, 90 minutes sleep. I'm blanking on the vampire who's been around for like 2,000 years.
I think Louis
No, not Louis.
Oh,
Armand.
the Roman.
Was it?
The Roman, yes.
The Roman
Oh.
character.
Marius.
Marius.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
it's been a while.
That book that stars him. Yeah, for me too. Yeah, I was gonna say a minute ago when you were answering Matt's question, it's fan fiction if you don't get paid for it, and if you write that kind of thing, you do get paid for it, then it becomes not fan fiction, right?
Yeah, right.
So, well, I'd like for Alan to tell us how he discovered you, and then Alan and Emma kind of take over the questioning for a while, and of course Matt, Pete, whoever wants to jump in. And then yeah, let's start with you, Alan.
Okay, well, sure. It was just I am a member of the Weird House, or I have the Weird House Patreon,
hmm
and they strangely they don't publicize it very much. I stumbled onto it through Patreon, not at the Weird House website. And just you get, for $5 a month, you get an ebook. And I think it was in June. Was it June or May?
Yeah, it sounds about right.
Yeah, it was released, and I shared it with, my wife. She's also a history teacher like me, and we really love I mean, most of your stories are contemporary, but you have some really great historical stories, your attention to detail in them.
Thank
We were
you.
just, it was great to, we occasionally swap books and share a book at the same time. It was just a great experience reading it with her and talking about each story afterwards. So
Oh
first,
wow.
thanks for that.
Well, thank you.
So
And
what Weird House is doing is certainly working for its writers, then those giveaways.
yeah, and I mean, I ended up buying I bought it on
Oh wow.
paper format too. So
Nice.
we got a double sell there.
By the way, everyone watching, listening later, the show notes are the same, and I've got a link to Morgan's book, The Withering Hours, Dark Folk Horror. So yeah.
I've got another question then,
Yeah,
because this has been an area I've been exploring lately, like the Severin film collections of folk horror movies. It's the folk horror is very squishy around the edges if you try and define it. You know what I mean? But I was wondering, what do you view as folk horror? And was this something you were deliberately trying to investigate with this collection, or?
Well, I think I have to sort of point at that documentary that came out. I think it was Of Woodlands Gone and Days Bewitched or something like that. And if you haven't seen it, it's great. It's long. It's like a 4-hour documentary, but it really goes through folk horror. And I think watching that made me realize that, like, oh, I'm actually a folk horror writer. I think as to define it, there is often an element of an outsider. There's often an element of paganism, the old ways, horror coming from nature. There are many different elements of it, and I'm sure if you asked 20 people, you'd probably get 20 answers. But I think that's kind of like where I sort of fit in. You probably noticed I sort of have like a witchy vibe to my work, and that sort of falls into that very much. But I mean, going back to films like, there's the original 3, there's Blood on Satan's Claw, The Wicker Man. Why am I blanking on the third one? The Witchfinder, I think.
Witchfinder General.
Yeah. And that kind of defines the genre. So it would definitely be an element of horror, but it's also got that kind of like more historical folklore base to it. It's, you know, the unknown in the field, or, you know, the harvest sacrifice that's, you know, been going on in this little tiny village, or like that sort of like everyday, just under the surface type horror, I think, rather than, you know, the flat out, you know, like clowns killing people or whatnot, whereas that's just pretty much straight up horror. I think there's more of a mystical folklorish, I guess that probably also where the folk part comes in, element to it. And I so often just love movies that are in that vein.
Yeah.
More
You
often
have a
than
recent
not.
one you can point our way, or?
Let me think. I'm blanking on the name. It was like the scariest movie ever filmed was the name of it. And I just rewatched it.
The film within a film.
Yeah, it was a film within a film. It's like a one-word title, and I'm completely
Antrim.
Atrum.
Yes, that one. That was a recent one that I really liked.
Okay. I haven't seen that one. Okay.
Pie Wacket. One
That is a great film.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And Emma, what was that one that I made you watch, Where the Devil Roams?
Yeah, Where the Devil Roams, I think.
love that movie.
Yeah, I did like it. You were right when you forced me to watch it.
And it wasn't a true story.
Yeah.
So
Well-
I'll suggest No One Gets Out Alive.
I don't think I've seen that one.
It's based on an Adam Neville story, and you don't think it's
Yeah.
folklore, but it is.
Oh, is that in the hotel?
It's she's staying in an apartment, or
I did see that one.
Also, The Ritual. Speaking of Adam.
Yeah, The Ritual was great. Loved that one. God, there's so many.
When Matt asked that question of you, how would you define folk horror? It just struck me. We talk a lot about weird fiction on this show, and you said depends on who you ask, and you're going to get 100 different answers. Same thing is true with weird fiction, I think. So yeah. Pete, I did introduce you. I did have you introduce yourself, right? Oh, man, I got to get more than 90 minutes sleep. So yeah, I thought I would have, of course, like I said, Matt and Pete jump in, but Alan and Emma, if you guys want to interrogate Morgan here, that'd be great. I'm sorry, I did forget to say when I was talking about linking to the book in the show notes that it's on print as you saw Alan hold up, but it's also on Kindle Unlimited for those of you who are on Kindle Unlimited. You can just borrow it for free and read it. So anyway. So she made you watch movies, Emma?
Oh yeah. So we and there's a joke there, but anyway, so Morgan and I are often convention. We live really close to each other. So well, close to each other in Maine, close, like maybe depending on who's driving, 20 to 30 minutes.
Mrs. Todd shortcut close.
Yeah, if I'm driving, it takes a lot longer. I'm a nervous driver. Anyway, we go to a lot of conventions together and day trips and things like that, and author events. So we often share a hotel room, and Sylvia tells me that I should, watch certain movies, and I was like, yeah, I will, and then I never do. And then when she has me as like a captive audience in the hotel, she's like, we're going to watch this. And so I don't have a choice. But I always she's always right. Like, as far as like my taste and stuff goes, like Where the Devil Roams, I genuinely love that. So like I really should listen and just watch things when she tells me to, instead of making them make me do it. But yeah. And then the thing the thing about that it's not a true story is that we were once at a convention and I came in later than she did, and there was something on the TV, and Sylvia said, this is a true crime thing. that I'm watching, and I'm like, okay, I'll
That's
watch
great.
it with you. And then she fell asleep, and I stayed up and watched this whole thing. And it was a riff on the, on the golden arm, the story of the wife has got the golden arm, and then she dies. I think she gets poisoned by the golden arm, and then later her husband digs it back up because he needs the money, and she comes back for a golden arm. And it was it was a Sam Raimi thing. So I'm watching this the whole time thinking, this can't be real. This is not true crime, but I wasn't sure. And so I watched this whole thing, and it was a Sam Raimi movie. I mean, she was like, at the end of the story, the wife, sorry for the spoilers, everybody, she's behind the door going, give me my arm. And I'm thinking, this is not true crime, surely. But so I have to be really like also, if she tells me information about something, I have to take it with a pinch of salt as well.
Well, hey, wait a second. You and I and several of us did a Patreon podcast
Yeah.
a year or two ago about, I'm blanking on the title.
Ghost Watch.
Yeah, has she told you this story, Morgan?
No.
I've not told you about Ghost Watch. I'm surprised.
I don't think so.
Because that was,
you did not win any babysitting awards that evening, Emma.
But also, it kind of illustrates that I'll believe stuff. If you tell me something, I'll go, oh, yeah, that must be true.
So I guess, well, you tell it better than me, but the short version is you were still in high school when it aired.
Yes.
You were watching it with your siblings and cousins.
Yes, siblings and cousins. I was like in charge, which was a bad idea. And it's Ghost Watch, which was one of the first ever it's like it was presented as a real live show with people from Britain. You'll have to watch it. I've got the DVD. And it's supposed to be like investigating a house that's haunted, but it's filmed in such a way as if it's real. And I really thought it was real. I thought that, this house was haunted by pipes and that they were going to come through the TV, and I was babysitting and we ended up all in a corner. And so right at the very end, minutes before the end, I went and switched it off because I was scared it was going to come through the TV. And that end part was where it talked about how it wasn't real and that it was a fictional thing. But I really thought it was for like a full night until I got to school the next day, and people were like, yeah, did you watch that? Yeah.
Yeah. If you're a Patreon, you haven't listened to that one yet, you should.
Yeah, it's the full story of it all.
Yeah.
But I highly recommend it.
Sorry, Morgan, when you talking about making her watch stuff, I remember that. So anyway, I'm sorry, Emma, take it away.
No, so I guess going on from that, trying to think what I was going to ask you. I kind of, because one of the things I was very struck by this collection in particular is how thematically satisfying it is. Like, you've got these different stories and they flow into each other, and they've got these themes that are very similar, but they're also distinct stories. So I was wondering if you could talk about some of the themes and motifs and elements of your stories that you tend to revisit again and again and really strengthen it.
Well, I think that, when I was curating the collection, I have more stories than actually went into this, and I was looking for things that would kind of match. And Curtis and I from Weird House had been talking about, doing something that was in the dark folk horror vein. So I was looking for things that would fit under that umbrella. And what I ended up doing, because I like to leave, and I think probably I'm the only one that's going to pick most of them up, I do like to leave like little Easter eggs from story to story. So there's a couple of loose connections in them, but like when I was looking at the collection, it kind of occurred to me that they're sort of all in the same like universe, but there's different timelines. Like if you look at it, the first story is the one that would take place furthest back in history, and then it kind of goes up through and then eventually beyond the modern age. So I was looking at that, and I think like as far as deeper themes, I'm often not really upfront aware of them as I'm writing. And I think that I'm kind of one of those that I think that to some extent it's up to the reader to determine like what that deeper level is. But I do tend to delve pretty heavily into elements of nature, into witchcraft, but also more of an angle from like how women were portrayed as witches unfairly, and that sort of like feminist angle to it. And then I love paranormal stuff, so there's always going to be like some paranormal elements in there somewhere. And then just there's kind of like a nature vibe into it. You know, some of the stories like Salt Cave has definitely like a creepy, you know, which takes place in a creepy cave in the woods in the not too far future. And another one that is a very closely related story to that would be a Marrow and Abomination, that features like this old crumbly barn. Well, there's like 10 of them in my neighborhood. Like there's one at the end of my road that I pass every day, and I'm always like, that is creepy as fuck. So there's that element to it. You know, there's things that I drive around and see. I live in Maine, so like there's a lot of just weird, you know, weird little nooks and crannies to the state, things you hear, things you see, folklore, legends. So my brain's kind of like a blender. I just put all these things in, things that interest me or scare me or confuse me or just whatnot. They all kind of get like mixed up and spat out into these different stories. But yeah, I was looking for things that kind of like went together. And it's like, if you step back and look at the collection, it's almost like one whole story, but just different pieces. So that's how I ended up curating it. And I went back and forth with a lot of the stories, like put some in, I took some out, and you know, that kind of thing. But
The first story set in colonial America really played with our expectations on how a story about witches goes.
Mhm. Yeah.
The ending.
I'm actually kind of interested in like the way you do your research, because you went to multiple different sources of mythology or stories, like I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, Strigoi,
Strigoi.
yeah, when you do your research, are you like just hitting online, or you like go to a university, to the forbidden book room, or
With the scrolls.
I often order books because as a freelancer, it's a tax write-off. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to order that one and write it off. So and I do tend to do deep diving, even if it's a short story. I think one that is probably the example where I went furthest with would be To Dance the Witch's Circle Again, that was one of the first stories I ever published. And I think that was probably the story where I really found my stride as a writer. I did a lot of research into the Scottish witch trials for that one, which that had always been a topic that interested me anyway, because here we know all about America, but we don't know so much about, like, there was some crazy stuff that happened in Scotland too. So that was very interesting to me. But no, I just kind of deep dive. I'll usually order a couple of books, and like with me, like if it interests me enough to write about it, chances are I'll revisit the book for something someday anyway. So it's not exactly like a, you know, wasted effort. And then just try to go to different sources, and I try to find the earlier versions of myths, or different like unused, unknown versions of myths. I just did a story that's going to be out in the Rack 2, which I can't probably talk too much about, but I'll say it's sort of in a similar vein as the vampire story in that, but different. And I did some very different research into different types of vampires. So there's like a very unknown and very weird vampire that pops up in that one that is from Eastern European folklore. I like going to different countries to look at the myths and seeing like what's different, what's the same from different cultures and ages and eras. And yeah, I'm kind of a sponge. I also love documentaries. Like, another thing I'll do is I'll just pull up a topic on YouTube and just let whatever's kind of come up play through as I'm working. And my brain tends to sort of like pick up the important parts that it wants, and then they just get spat out into stories later. So I'm kind of a sponge as far as that all goes.
You know, for me, that
Yep.
sort of begs the question of what maybe it's so far back they don't remember, but what fascinated you about folklore in the first place that sent you down this road?
It's really so far back I can't remember, but I guess
Yeah.
like my, you know, weird things that happened to me growing up. my tastes sort of
Wait,
fallen into
inquiring minds
Wait,
want
the
to
weird
know.
things.
Weird things that happen.
Right there, we just hit gold. We just hit gold on that one, yeah.
There were some of them ended up actually more of them ended up in my horror novel abode. Like there were just little, just little weird things. Like I came across a shallow grave one time, or this crazy weird field, or one time I was walking through a cemetery and I heard a voice yell out of nowhere. My friend was with me, so I did not imagine it. There was
Oh,
no one
wow.
around. So
Yeah.
like little things like that. I've just always been interested by like, the dark side of, then there's like urban legends and, there's just so much out there. So
Yeah.
And it's not just like you're writing spells. I mean, you really get into the very gruesome aspects of horror, like about the Scottish witch trials. But I actually thought my favorite story that I read in the collection was Janie, because you completely had me going.
that was brutal. That was brutal to write.
It's real. It ended up being an incredibly terrible story. You know what happened to this woman? It's like, oh my Lord.
Yeah.
Not terrible in the writing and terrible.
Yeah, that was probably the hardest one I've ever written, and that was kind of a gut punch even to me. I was like, when I realized that I had to kind of end it that way, I was just like, ooh. Like, but
Oh well, when J.K. Rowling wrote The Death of Sirius Black, she said she was depressed for a month. So if you're like identifying with your protagonist, I can't imagine what it's like to write something like that.
it creeped me out. I've creeped myself out a couple times, but that was kind of a heavy one. Yeah.
Can you tell me? I really thought it was so well written. Can you tell me like what was the genesis of it? Was there something that happened, or?
I think some of the things that came into play. I don't know if you would remember, but there was that old movie, I Never Promised You a Rose Garden. And it's about a girl in an asylum, and she's like imagining, fantasy world. And in that version, there's like, a whole medieval court and, dances and things like that. And One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest was another one that I had watched. And then a couple songs got thrown into the mix. And then some of the things that happen when I write first person, it just sort of kicks me into another level. And it just that was one of the ones that almost kind of wrote itself. Like once I had like an idea of that creepy asylum vibe. And I think, Emma, this is kind of around the time where you and I got lost and ended up by the asylum. And I was starting to get into the asylum thing because I thought we were going to end up on an asylum project. So I was like, yeah. I sort of went down that little rabbit hole, and I just ended up with like just this asylum vibe. And I don't normally, like, hopefully this isn't too much of a spoiler, but I don't normally write serial killer stories or typical murder stories or things like that. That's just not normally my jam, but I did kind of go there in this one. It was pretty brutal. Yeah.
So it wasn't the Session 9.
I love that movie though. That's
too.
like one of my favorite movies. Yes, I will watch that again and again and again. I actually have somewhere on the shelves that I just put back together. Ooh, I just realized I haven't seen that one go by. I actually have like a little art book that was made, excuse me, that was made from people that were patients at Danvers.
Wow.
And it's like little bits of their stories and like their art of the original building. And it's just like, even opening it, you get that weird, sad, mentally ill, depressed, hospital-y vibe that you just pick up when you go to like go near a place like that. Like we have an abandoned asylum where I live, and just driving by, you get that creepy aura from it. So like there was definitely that went into Jeannie.
It's been a long time, but
like,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's okay.
I was just going to say on Session 9, it's been a very long time since I watched the DVD extras, but I seem to remember the actors talking about, being on the roof during breaks and stuff like that, and, hearing these voices to tell them to jump and all these creepy feelings. And so yeah.
Yeah.
It was just white mold.
Yeah, right. Do you have to take the fun away?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Uh,
most he obeyed.
You
I don't know.
play around with a lot of different characters, first person narration. Was there anything that was a little difficult, or I mean, you do some narration from the point of view of, like at one point, I think an old god or some sort of elder being in 14 in Oak Street.
Which one that was?
14 Oak Street.
Oh yeah. That was actually an angel.
Oh.
Because I had done it was a companion piece to, I think it was a companion piece. I think it was Witch Mirror, which I was actually in and that was for an Anne Rice charity anthology. But 14 Oak Street, because me, like with my love of researching stuff, kind of realized that like the historical angels were not these like cute little fluffy cherubs. They were actually pretty creepy.
Yes, they
And
were.
it kind of came to me that, like, if you believe in Christian mythology, that angels and demons are really the same thing. It's just whatever side they took. So I was like, well, if a demon can possess somebody, then what would an angel possession look like? And so it's actually like, kind of taking the step back and saying, well, they're the same being. They just pick different sides. And so if a demon can possess somebody, then why can't an angel? So it's like basically an evil angel.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, that was a fun one to write, because if you actually look up like historical angels, they're crazy looking. It's like a wheel with eyes and like this
Right.
rune looking thing that's on fire, and like they're just they're not these like cutesy little
No, and in the
cherub.
Bible, whenever a character encounters an angel in the Bible, in the
Be
Old
thou
Testament,
not afraid.
yeah, instantly they're petrified because
Yeah.
they're so horrified by the sight. And
Right.
the angel has to, hey, you're fine. I'm not here to kill you or something. Reassures them.
Right.
And I'm Mr. Shouting Out Movies today. Sorry, but this makes me think of that film that you and I like a lot, Pete, A Dark Song.
Yes, I love that one. I love that movie.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm still not sure about the ending.
It's just one thing I like about it. It shows how hard it is to do a ritual. It is just desperately difficult and dangerous. And she only got what she wanted because of what she was willing to give up.
Yeah, the sacrifices. You don't just walk into somewhere, light a candle, and speak some Latin, So.
Right.
Yeah.
And when did Latin become like the set language for like angels and demons and contracts with the devil? I mean, seriously, like what were you thinking?
It
should be Aramaic.
It's the same answer every time. It's a shortcut for the people writing the show because the Catholic Church is so ancient, and that iconography is pretty well established, at least in our culture. So instead of having to do this whole bunch of backstory, immediately says everyone sort of knows where you're at. At least that's the way I think about it. That's why it is.
Yeah.
That's kind of a funny point, because there was an episode of, I think it was like Ghost Adventures or something, where they're in Rome and they're like hearing voices. I'm like, why would these ancient Roman soldiers be speaking English? Like, they had them like, speaking English. So
why do all Nazis speak with a German accent?
Right.
Yeah. What? Anyway, it's the same problem.
Pete, if English was good enough for Abraham and Isaac, it's good enough for everyone else, right? All right. Dad joke. Nobody laughs.
Yeah. No, I got it.
Whatever.
It was bad, but I got
it. Yeah. Anyway, so Emma, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just gotta let my cat out. I'll be right back. I'm not.
No problem. We're cat people here. Yep. Hey, while she's doing that, guys, I've got a few announcements, but I'll just read one real quick. Laird, did you guys see the announcement from me and from Doug at Bad Hand Books about Laird who's going to be needing a kidney, Laird Barron?
Yeah.
I've got the link. I talked to Jessica about it the other day. Laird has not, as you can imagine, been it's just been it's been hell. So he's not registered for the kidney yet, but you don't have to wait until he registers if this is something that you want to see if you can do. You do have to be type O. But I provided the link where that's where you get started. And that's basically the extent of my knowledge on how this works. But except to say that the idea is, he's on dialysis. So the idea is that he gets the kidney before the dialysis stops working, as I'm sure Matt could tell us way better than me. So, yeah, I've got that in the show notes. And if you can't do that, buy some Laird books, So, all right. So anyway, Emma, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was.
The cat is taken care of.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, there's cats. See, Emma's got a cat. I've got multiple cats. Alan's got 2 cats?
3.
3 now. Okay.
Yeah.
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 Matt and Pete are the only strange people here that don't.
If Isabel wasn't allergic, we'd have a cat.
Yeah, we have a dog, and it's like a cat.
It's small enough to be a cat.
45 pounds, but yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought it was smaller.
But we would have a cat if everybody but me was not allergic.
Well, this is the kind of important things we talk about on this show, Morgan. You write full time, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Could a lot of writers watch and listen to this show. Can you talk a little bit about, for their benefit, how you got to that point and so forth? It's kind of the dream of a lot of creators to be able to do it full time.
Well, I mean, I don't write. I wish I could, but I don't make a living full time off of my fiction. I also freelance, and my specialty is like the pet / veterinary and niche. Any advice that I would give, like, this is a very hard time for that industry, what with the rise of AI, and
Yeah.
it's been, very challenging. My work has, they want to incorporate AI. A lot of the clients do, and I'll do what the client wants, but I'm just like, I don't want to work with robots.
Yeah.
It's kind of different. It's as much marketing, I think, as it is writing, because you're usually trying to, portray a business or a client from that sort of, commercial, I guess, aspect. So it's kind of different, but the language is still there, the type of language that you use. And it's kind of a weird market, but it's also something where I would say somebody that's getting into it, be well-rounded in social media and editing and things like that, because it's kind of like I'm actually branching into more of the SEO aspects of it, which is a little bit more tech and less writing. And I'm doing a little bit more social media now as opposed to writing. And then I'm doing some freelance. I've actually got, I think, 4 freelance articles due in 2 weeks. So I'm kind of busy with that. So
That's
it's kind of
great,
either way, like I'm going into like more local, the stuff I have coming out is for local businesses, which I love doing. So it's just kind of, you got to keep at it. But I mean, I would say my biggest piece of advice, which I did not listen to and I've regretted, but don't try not to put all your eggs in one basket, but have like different clients and build up a base. But that is really, really hard in this market. I've been like incredibly lucky to have the clients that I have. And I am really, really thankful for that. So
I read a book a long time ago that talked about, I was in my mid-20s at the time, so it may sound very basic now, but at the time it was just a revelation to me. It was called Multiple Streams of Income. And of course the idea is exactly that if you're self-employed, don't put it all in one basket. You may have just a little bit coming from this job, but a little bit, and then add it all together, you're making a living, hopefully. So yeah, it is nice to be able to set your own hours. So
it is.
Of course, it also helps in my case to have a wife that has a quote unquote real job with health insurance for us. So,
right. Yeah.
So, Alan, did you have some questions for Morgan as well? I'm sure you do.
Sure, if Emma wants to go, but
No, go ahead, Alan. I'll turn.
Oh, sure. Let's see, you have a werewolf story, and that was epic. And I mean, it was an epic short story. Was there any temptation to say, I've got a novel's worth of material here?
It's funny because that story, I've had a couple of people be like, you should write a novel about this.
Okay, well, that's, yeah.
I might eventually, but then again, I'm like, well, I feel like I told that story already. So, I
Yeah.
don't know that expanding it into a novel would really interest me, but I think maybe expanding the world and the characters, like there might be a bit more there. It's not at the top of the list, but yeah, that is kind of like one of my favorite ones that I've written. Um, yeah.
No. Is that deciding on how to, I mean, how did you decide on, when you start out with an idea on whether it goes to be a novel or a short story, or does that just depend on the project?
It's kind of project to project, but I have several times had things start out as short stories that just keep growing. I've got right now one of the things that I thought I was going to be writing as a novella. I'm like, oh, this needs to be a novel. I'm at 30,000 words and there's like no end in sight. And I'm like, damn it, I did it again. I did that with my fantasy series, Dawn. I have two fantasy series. One of them is not published yet. It's still cooking, but it's like already like 6 or 7 books long. It's like my Wheel of Time or Game of Thrones or whatever. But I've been working on that steadily for several years and I just got tired of it. I was like, I'm going to write a standalone. And I just brainstormed this chapter. And then it was just like out of nowhere, just, kind of brain vomit stuff. And I was like, well, what is this? I ended up having to write 3 books to get to that scene. It ended up being like the final scene in the Dawn trilogy. And now it's funny because now I'm actually editing the final book. And I'm like, I think I might have to cut the scene because it no longer works with all of the changes that went through the other stuff. So yeah, I have a really weird writing process. But for the most part, it's usually depending on the project, like if I'm, invited into something or whatnot. A couple of the stories in this were those were originally written for the New England Horror Writers anthology series. They usually do Wicked is their kind of staple for the different ones. They've done like Wicked Weird, Wicked Haunted, Wicked Women. I think the werewolf one was for Wicked Women, if I remember correctly. So yeah, sometimes it's something that's, writing for a theme, and I don't usually go too crazy with specific themes. I don't know if you guys have heard the pizza story thing. I'm sure you're probably familiar. A couple of years ago, somebody did a call for pizza anthology and they got like 600 or 700 entries. And like, so after they made their choices, there were like all these pizza stories floating around. And I've kind of done the same thing. Well, not anymore. Now I don't do it, but I've written something that was really specific to a specific anthology, and then it didn't get in or the project gets canceled. It's like, well, what do you do with this? So now I'd like, if I do something like that, I make sure that I can back out if I need to and like change whatever it is that makes it that specific. I just did that with one story for, it was a theme about a band. I won't say the band, but, I wrote a very specific story to their mythos, and now the project's dead, and I'm still like, I got to do something with this. So, but I did that for another one, and it was very easy because I learned that lesson. So the other one I did, it was easy to like erase the connection, and then I ended up with like a historical story that you would never know was ever connected. So, yeah.
So that brings up something else, Sylvia. So I know that when I think originally, didn't you go to school for sound engineering?
Yep.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yep.
And I know that you were involved in bands and that you were also a music journalist at one point. Can you talk about how music informs your writing and vice versa, and how it's part of the same thing?
Lyrics, I think the main thing there would be like, I'm often told or accused, I guess, of having a very literary style, and I think that very much comes from music lyrics. Things like The Doors and Pink Floyd and Dead Boy and the Elephant Man, Acid Bath. Like, I love Duran Duran even. I love like those kind of lyrics and that have that poetic aspect to them. I actually, when I started writing poetry, I thought I was writing song lyrics until it eventually dawned on me that I'm not actually in a band, and that means that these are poems because they're never going to be sung. So there is that element, like when I'm writing, I do look for sort of a rhythm and a cadence to the words. So there is that. And yeah, I'm not actually like, I had the ear for music, but I don't have the coordination. I hate being in the spotlight ever. Like I do not like being the center of attention ever, ever, ever. So that was just not wasn't the right field for me, which is why I went for sound recording. But eventually I realized that like for sound recording, it's kind of one of those where you sort of have to like intern or kind of work your way up the ladder, because it's one of those businesses. And I was already kind of doing that with writing. And I just realized that like at one point, like writing was more my style. But I do have a lot of my close friends are musicians and tied to the music scene. So I've kind of learned, I guess, some sort of work ethic or something. I don't know. I know that like any of the arts, like you have to like really, really work hard to make it.
Yeah.
It's very, very hard, and you have to always push yourself and grow and just try to like always improve on what you've done and just keep growing. So I guess I take that from it more than anything, I would say.
Well, on that note, writing poetry, having done that myself, what is your, do you have any, it's quite a bit different than writing prose, obviously. How does a poem come to you, or what is your process, or is every single poem different? Can you talk a little bit about that?
It usually just involves me sitting down and brainstorming some weird words. Sometimes there's wine involved, and I'm just like in a mood, and I'm just like, blah. Occasionally it'll be like a specific turn of phrase, but it's just more in my brain. Like poetry is almost more like free flowing for me. Like I don't have to overthink it. I can just kind of like get lost in the rhythm of what it is. And my poems are kind of like, it's almost like this one amoeba that keeps splitting off into little amoebas. And occasionally I'll go back and I'll like rearrange the amoebas. I will take like little bits of a poem and then spin off another poem from it. Some of the things in my last collection were little bits and pieces came from a different collection where I went different ways with different phrases. I am not a trained poet. I don't deal with any kind of formal what would you call it, formats.
Yeah.
I pretty much freestyle it, and it's just but something that happens though sometimes with me in poetry is that I will write a poem and it ends up having like a story behind it, and then I'll end up writing it as a story. That happened with Carrion Harvest, which was a limited edition that came out from Thunderstorm
That's
with
interesting.
Mary San Giovanni's line.
Yeah.
It started as a combination of two poems, and she had luckily Emily was there for this one because I think she remembered more of it the next day than I did.
Yeah, I
When
did.
Mary offered me the chance, she's like, write a novella. And I was just thinking, like, I had these poems like ruminating and feeling like there was a deeper story there. And so I went back to them, and that got revisited, respat out, and now it's a novella, which is also in audio format. If you want to look it up, Realm did it a couple months ago. So you can find that at Carrion Harvest. You can find it on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, whatever. But yeah, that started from a couple of poems. And actually, The Witch Story and Withering Hours started as a poem. I think there's another one in there, but I can't think which one it is right now. That was originally a poem. So it's kind of all the same thing, but like, yeah, I think with the poems, I'm not really too worried about anything, but like the imagery and the cadence of it, and it's just very freestyle. Just let my brain do whatever weird thing my brain does. So there's that.
You guys jump in if you have questions too, obviously, but I was wondering if you could tell, I haven't read this one yet, but I noticed it. Tell us about Abode.
Abode is my first novel. It's available. It was originally out from Bloodshot, but Crystal Lake now has it. And there is also an audiobook, which I am really, really happy about. Like the guy did a killer job. It's a haunted house novel, but with a twist. It's kind of chunks of it are second person because they're written in email style. If anybody wants to read it, I'd say with fall coming up, this is the perfect time to delve into it because it is kind of seasonal. It starts in fall and then it goes through winter. A lot of just different, creepy things that I remembered from my childhood. There's like definitely like a sort of retro element to it. There is a very, very, very unreliable main character. There is I don't know if I should, well, I guess it's not really a spoiler because if you read the reviews, it's actually a Wendigo story. But there's also it's also like a possession story. I don't know that I would revisit it. I built enough of a world to where I could go back into it, and I might someday. I will say, like, I scared myself writing that book, and I've had people tell me that they had to read it with the lights on or that it gave them nightmares. So if you like scary horror, I think
that's a hell of a compliment for a.
I know. I'm always like, yes.
And then this wasn't your book, but you contributed to it, Northern Frights.
Yep. That was an anthology put out by the Horror Writers of Maine. That's a local group that has gone through several different forms, but that was an anthology that we put out. And the story I did in that, Agony Chamber, it's kind of loosely a companion story to The Only Way Out. That one was also done in audio format by Degas Media. So if you want to listen to it rather than read it, you can always listen to that one. And that kind of, I think that one stemmed from a childhood fear. Like, I don't know if you ever see the memes where people are like, I thought that, what is it? Sinkholes, quicksand was going to be a bigger problem than it actually is as an adult. Like, you remember as a kid, like there's always like quicksand that people fall into.
Right.
I had an aunt that like terrified me about holes in the ground. And she'd be like, don't go in the woods. You'll fall through a hole into the ground. So that kind of played into it a little bit. So
that was in one of the stories in the collection.
Yeah. That's Agony Chamber. It did end up in the collection.
Well, I did notice those gods from the Agony Chamber appeared in other. Is this going to be part of your recurring mythology that you visit?
Maybe, I don't know, but that was kind of funny because if you've ever seen the movie The Empty Man, the beginning was kind of similar. And I don't think it was any kind of just sometimes different people have the same idea. I don't think it was anything weird, but it was kind of I don't know, I just remember being a little kid and being afraid I was going to fall through a hole in the ground. And those childhood fears are still kind of fun to revisit sometimes.
Well, don't live in Florida, right, Pete?
Yeah, right.
We just, the earth just opens up here and water comes out and people go in. It's not a problem.
Brian Hodges' latest collection, we talked about this when we had him on the show. There's a story like that. It's cosmic horror. It's terrifying, where the guy's, I guess, college-age son is driving to their house on the street, basically in front of the house, and a sinkhole opens up through a combination of old mines and things like that. It's a really good story.
Yeah,
really good collection. He's very talented.
It is terrifying. I lived in Florida for 20 years, and for a while, there was one that you could sort of tell it was starting to the ground, over this one road that I drove to work. You could tell this depression was getting a little bit deeper all the time, and it would always freak me out going over it. They eventually filled that in, but I remember I'd be stuck there at a light and being like, please don't collapse under me.
What, Alan, Matt, everyone, do you guys have more questions for Morgan?
She said Emma and Morgan, you're working on something together. What is that?
Oh, we did work on go on, Blood Forest. Go on, tell them.
Yeah,
about Blood Forest.
That was fun.
Yeah.
No, it was really fun. We racked up quite the body count between us. Yeah, it was a great experience, and I think we do have more projects between us at some point. I think we got a movie.
Yeah.
Wait.
Yeah.
Movie? Wait, you've got interest in other media for your work?
Oh yeah, I mean, I haven't had anything sold, but I was just talking about me and Emma we worked pretty well together, and we were always talking about doing something else, and we were batting around the idea of writing a screenplay.
Yeah,
which I would still like to do. But no, Blood Forest. That was I think it was both of our first time in a writer's room.
Yeah. So Blood Forest is an audio drama And you can listen to it. It's in everywhere you get podcasts, and it's a full audio drama series, and it's basically werewolves in Maine. And the guy who's the producer, Fred Greenhalgh, he posted on, because we all know each other, we live in Maine, and he posted a thing saying, "What do you all think about werewolves?" And we all like were chatting about it, and then me and Sylvia got invited separately and didn't know until we were actually in the project that we were both in it. And like we're in a writing group and we're living in each other, but we didn't know. So there was 4 of us that wrote it, and Fred. And me and Sylvia worked quite closely together, and that was in script form. It was like it's basically a movie, but just for your ears. So, and oh man, we killed a lot of teenagers in that thing, like a lot.
It was a crazy pace too. Like it was a full season, which was, I think we ended up with what, like 10 episodes, and we had a month to do it in.
Yeah.
So we were like,
we all lost our minds doing it.
Crazy,
but it was good. Yeah.
Wow.
It was.
I recommend
I'm looking at it online now. This looks really, really interesting, and I love audio drama.
It won some awards, I believe, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and it's got some great actors in it. So, I mean, we can't take credit for that, but yeah, they did a really good job.
Yeah.
Blood Forest.
One of the guys from The Thing was in it, which that was like what I was.
That was it. Yeah. One of the voice actors. Yeah.
Oh wow. Do you know which one?
David.
I mean,
I'm forgetting his last name.
I mean, he's an old guy now, and he plays like an old cranky guy in The Thing, but I can't remember who it was.
I think it's David. I want to say David something. I'll have to look it up. I guess I should know the name before I mention it.
Keith David.
So
Keith David.
Maybe I don't remember.
If you need someone to play an old cranky guy,
hey, at one point we were like, we wrote in this. I can't remember if it made it in, but we're writing this scene where there were these 2 authors, main authors that were staying in a cabin, and they get menaced by the werewolves, and there's a certain father-son combo of main authors that we were really hoping to get to voice act, and it didn't happen. But we were literally like, maybe we could get Stephen King to do this. Let's write this scene, but it didn't happen. But we got the guy from The Thing, and I think there was another actress in it who was in the original, who was in one of the Stephen King movie adaptations, and I'm totally blanking. It was a couple of years ago now, but it was a great experience, and working together on a script like that made us feel like, yeah, maybe we can write a movie. So when we both get time eventually.
Yeah.
So Morgan, what are you working on currently? Do you have any projects coming up you can tell us about?
I do. The second book of my fantasy series is actually available now for pre-order from Crossroads Press, and I'm finishing up edits on book 3. After that, I have a horror novel that I am waiting to get back to, and then after that, I have a science fiction horror novel that I'm also waiting to get back to. I don't know which one I'm going to first, actually. And then I never run out of ideas. I've got a couple of other things that are sort of simmering, half done, so got plenty to work on.
Are you one of those disciplined people who will devote a block of hours each day to write, or is this just the kind of thing that you're all over the map doing your work, or then writing?
I'm a little bit of both. I used to, when I worked a normal job, I used to have this thing where I would just always set Sundays aside for writing. I was like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not doing anything. I'm cooking something yummy, and I'm just writing all day. Now that I make my own hours, it's gotten a little bit more loosey-goosey, I guess. I do try to set out like an hour a day, but when I was completely freelancing, and now I have other stuff that I'm doing that is more like normal job stuff. So now I have certain hours where I have to be working, so I don't have as much flexibility as I did. I still do, but I have it's just different, a little bit different on the schedule stuff. So I do try to save an hour a day for my stuff. And then, but I also tend to work more in the winter when it's just crappy out and I don't want to go anywhere anyway. So, there's a lot of times where I just okay, it's going to be rainy, freezing rain all weekend. I'm just writing all weekend. So
Maine winters, I can imagine. Maine winters.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're speaking of audio dramas. We're going to talk to a couple guys here in a minute about the Eldritch episodes. So, but I do want to ask you a question that I'd like to ask creators, Morgan. As far as your writing career goes, what has to happen to make you feel like, oh, I'm a successful writer? You know, like, and it's an interesting question to me because everyone answers it differently. You know,
Hmm.
I was interviewing Victor Laval for a Patreon podcast recently, and um, well, I won't spoil it, but he gave it'll be up next week. He gave a couple of really good examples about his first book versus his second book and his expectations. But anyway,
I mean, I'd love to have a bestseller. I'd love to have something turned into a movie. So I guess those are like the first two things to come to mind. I'd love to win an award. So I guess like nothing too crazy on that. Just kind of like the milestones that I think everybody, the gold rings that everyone kind of wants to grab at.
Yeah.
But I think peer recognition is also important, and just for me, just it's a struggle getting my work out there, I think, because I'm not really great at marketing myself. So it's, I really appreciate things like this just to, get me out there a little bit.
Oh, sure. We're glad to have you on.
Yeah.
So
Or a stalker,
I'm sorry?
there's that too.
I'm sorry,
Or a
say that again.
stalker. Or a stalker.
Oh, yeah, Matt.
Not that I want one, but
Yeah.
I guess that would be.
Well, I think
that would-
Matt
Paid it.
was I think Matt was offering earlier. But yeah.
Matt would be the
So
laziest stalker.
get off my lawn, stalker. Well, The Withering Hours, I really enjoyed it. I'm going to check out the other stuff as well and look forward to reading the rest of your work. Really appreciate Alan bringing you to my attention. So,
thank you.
yeah. Emma,
I'm gonna pick up, follow your work and pick up what
yeah,
what you
absolutely.
get released in the future.
Well, it's great you could read it with your wife, Alan.
That was a great experience, and
Yeah,
definitely something we're gonna try again.
good. Thanks for being here, Emma.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Always
Thank
nice
you for
to see
having me.
And Emma's book, as always, is one of the greatest titles ever. Dark Blood
Thank you.
comes from the feet. So, like I always say, you see that on a shelf, real shelf or a virtual shelf, you just got to pick it up.
Yeah.
So,
It's a
all
great
right.
connection as well.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. NPR thought so as well. Is there anything, Emma, Morgan, that maybe we didn't think to ask that you'd like to let everyone know about, or did we cover it?
Is there anything you think, anything else you want to mention? You're going to be in the rack too, right? Let's mention that. So that's coming up, the Tom Dede edited thing. So
What? That sounds so familiar to me, but I can't place it.
I feel like, is John Langham going to be in it as well? So there was the first one. I think you had the people from the first The Rack. You had them here, and they definitely got interviewed. And it's a sequel. It's like the 80s
that's right.
one.
That's right. Yeah. Where they were on here. Yeah. Yeah. You're going to be in the sequel, in the second one?
Yep, I'm in the second one, and Emma and I are both going to be at Merrimack Valley Book Fair or Book Fest, which is in Haverhill, Massachusetts, taking place in October. Can't think of anything else.
And you guys are going to write more stuff together too?
Yes.
Together and separately, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if we covered it all, yes, thank you very much for being here, Morgan.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really
appreciate it. Yeah, I'll keep you posted as when the audio edition comes out and
awesome.
email you a link. So,
thank you.
everyone, please pick up The Withering Hours, and if you're on Kindle, yep, there it is. If you're on Kindle Unlimited, it's free for you, so to speak. So anyway, you guys are welcome to stay or leave, whatever you want to do. We're going to talk about Lovecraftian audio dramas for a few minutes here. So,
I'll stay.
Awesome. I was hoping you'd say that. So, all right, guys. So this is my first time meeting you. So who is who?
Oh, hello.
I'm
Is
gonna
my audio
stay
working
with
well?
They
Can you guys
literally
hear me?
have names.
Yeah, well, Jeff. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Jeff Devine.
Who have I been emailing? Because it just
Me.
said
With
Eldritch
Victor.
episodes. Okay. All right,
Me.
Victor. All right.
Is my
Great.
audio coming out okay?
Yes, you're good.
Because I did a weird setup for work here, so.
Nope,
But,
you sound just fine.
all right.
So,
Great.
I just wanted I was sick last Sunday and you guys were so understanding. I wanted to get you back on here as soon as I could. So
No problem at all.
Yep, we appreciate that.
We appreciate the
So-
opportunity.
So I
Yes,
just
Matt.
listened to The Hound, and I thought it was really quite superb. It seems to me like this is a relatively new venture on YouTube. Could you kind of tell us how you got together, how you started writing these audio dramas? I'm actually kind of interested in what it takes to put one of those together because it seems quite elaborate with the music and the special effects and the different actors.
Yes, it started with me. I actually work with this, not necessarily audio drama, but I work with audio post-production for cinema, for television, and I also do soundtrack composing for various projects. So I've always been an audio person. I've always been working with audios. I have the equipment. I have all that I need to produce something like that on my home studio here. And one night I had insomnia. I don't sleep very well. That's unfortunate. And I decided to write a script about a project that I had in the back of my mind. And it was just trying. I sent up a few posts online on Reddit. That's when I met Jeff, who sent me an email. And we've been kind of doing this for fun for the past few months and slowly growing the show. It's been amazing. And it started as a nighttime adventure, basically.
Yeah, and also I've got the link in the show notes, everyone, to their website, but you can listen on YouTube and it's available pretty much wherever you can listen to a podcast, I think. Right?
Yes.
Spotify and so forth.
hmm
So
It was-
are you located in LA if you're in film, or is that something you don't have to be in the?
No, I live in Spain, actually.
Oh, really?
I'm not a native English speaker. I'm originally from Brazil, but I currently live in Spain. But for the type of work what I do, which is mostly post-production of audio, I can do basically from anywhere in the
Yeah.
world, as long as I have an internet connection. So I have a little home studio here that I used to work and now make the other episodes.
Where are you, Jeff?
I'm in Syracuse, New York.
Okay. It's funny because right before a few minutes before you guys came on, we were talking to Morgan and Emma, well, about a lot of things, but Emma mentioned an audio drama that she had a huge part in, and Morgan did too, called Blood Forest. And I just bring that up because I think you've mentioned it to me before, Emma, but it's kind of like the TBR, the TB listened to. But yeah, I think I'm going to start that tonight. But my point is that I really love audio drama. I've always been a huge fan of audio drama ever since I was a kid growing up listening to old time radio in the early to mid 80s. The local Iowa station did every night at 10:30 they would do a rebroadcast a couple of old time radio shows from the 40s and 50s. And of course, they're very, very easy to listen to now with the internet and everything. But back then, it was just I loved it, and that's where I got my love of audio drama, starting with old time radio, and then I graduated onto mystery theater in the 70s. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with any of those, but I do love
Oh,
audio
yeah.
books a lot. But there's just something about audio drama. There's a company that Alan and I are both familiar with called Graphic Audio.
hmm
And sounds like you guys are too. And they do a lot of different stuff, but I've mainly listened to their DC Comics stuff. you know, Batman, Superman, and the Justice League and so forth. But every time they start an episode, they say something like graphic audio, a movie in your mind. And that's just such a great way to think of it, you know.
Right.
So I'm curious. Obviously, you've got the technical expertise, but what about the love of audio drama? How did that start for you? And then, of course, you're like, we want to do this. We're going to do Lovecraft, and you know why Lovecraft as well. So
It started with tabletop RPGs basically. I have been playing it since I was a little kid with my friends. And I always loved storytelling. I do work mostly with soundtracks, but what makes me passionate about it, it's not necessarily music. It's being able to tell a story with music. That's why soundtracks specifically, and not working in a studio recording bands, for example. So I always had this passion for telling stories. And I love cinema, I love books, I love any media that allows me to tell a story. And it matches that passion with what I could work with, which was my job, my technical expertise, and all of that. So it was basically joining those two words of what I really like to do with what I can do that made this project start. And it started with Lovecraft for a couple of reasons. First, again, tabletop RPGs. I've been playing Call of Cthulhu for years as well. And to me, his stories, unfortunately, never get the same type of feel when they're adapted to the screen. Because there's a lot that it's your mind filling in those gaps. And that's where the magic is.
Right. Absolutely.
And the audio, it's the middle of the way. I can give you enough with the music, with the sound effects, with the voices, but I still leave some parts for your brain to feel back, and that can cause like the magic to happen, basically, of what I think Lovecraft, like, it's when Lovecraft shines, is when you try to feel what's not there, and you end up with those amazing tales. I think for Jeff, I imagine it's something similar, but from a different route, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up listening to audio dramas. The CBS Radio Mystery Theater was, like, I remember as a kid, just like, I'm gonna go lie in bed and listen to the radio and hear what
I'm
this
sorry to
next.
interrupt you, but isn't that just like so magical? You're laying in bed in the dark, just you, and suddenly you're exploring in your mind this, as graphic audio says, a movie in your mind. Anyway, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I love audiobooks. I've loved the full cast dramatizations of a lot of stories, and it really, I think without the visual cues there, it really does allow your imagination to fill in all those details if it's well done. And that's essentially what we're trying to do, is adapting these Lovecraft stories and leaving that room for imagination.
Yeah. Alan, you've had a chance to listen to several too as well, right?
Yeah, and I would just like to say I appreciate the amount of work that goes into it. A lot of Lovecraft stories, you have to fill in the dialogue. He just kind of summarized, and so you have to create scenes from whole cloth. Is that a lot of work, or is that one of the most time-consuming parts of is scripting it out, fleshing it out?
It is, but it is a fun kind of work, because, like you said, a lot of Lovecraft's work are more broad. Like, I did that, but it doesn't tell you how. How was the room? Well, how was there with it? What he was listening to, and being able to fill in those gaps is where we are able to tell our versions of those stories. For example, Jeff recently wrote an adaptation of The Horror Red Hook, which is not a super detailed story, but we did an incredible adaptation, and I do all the praise to Jeff's script, which was fantastic. with a noir background, very old cinema narration style. That of course we don't have the images, but the black and white cinema with the narration, with the jazz, being able to fill those gaps is where we let the creativity flow. So it is indeed a lot of work, but it's a very rewarding type of work.
It's a fun exercise, you know, with Horror at Red Hook, which is arguably one of Lovecraft's worst stories, that just it has a lot that, like, wait, what's going on? Why is this happening? It explains the events, but there's just no connection. And so it was sort of an intellectual challenge of working within Lovecraft's framework, but also trying to fill in those blanks and put a little of myself in there, and then put something in there to really bring it to life. And we told this one as a noir detective story. And Victor really brought that to life with the jazz music and the whole audio atmosphere.
It's such an incredible amount of work. The writing, the voice acting, the you know, the man. Matt, you had a question?
Well, I noticed that you have original stories on there too, though.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of wondering, is it the same amount of effort? Like you're doing something completely from the first idea versus I've got this center of the stories already composed and I'm going to present it the way that I can to best serve the audio drama.
It depends, because all the original stories so far were mine, and they're all basically ideas that were in the back of my head for years almost, for Call of Cthulhu, the tabletop RPG campaigns, or a short story here. So I've been having the core ideas for those stories for a while, and I had pieces there. So it's the difference is, instead of connecting Lovecraft's kind of more broad stories, is my own more broad stories, and I'm able to do that exercise, and it's also really fun. And we try to merge them together, making everything inside the mythos, because it was still focused on cosmic horror and on Lovecraft mythos as a whole, but being able to play around on that playground that we're very fond of is really fun as well with original stories. And I'm able to explore other, for example, we have a story called What Comes from the Deep, which is a story set in an isolated fort in the Caribbean in the 1700s. It allowed me to explore a side of a lot of water sounds, a lot of different atmospheres that, depending on the Lovecraft story you want to adapt, you might not able to be as free, for example. So mixing those, I think, is a good balance, and it's a lot of fun to be able to connect stories as well.
Yeah, you keep using that word.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Alan. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say the southern atmosphere in Statement of Randolph Carter was very well done.
Well, how long does it
sound
take you
of the
guys to
swamp.
put one over when you start, say you got an idea, like, I don't know, let's say now we're going to do the Dunwich Horror.
Mhm.
How long does it take you from deciding that's your project to actually finally posting it? How many hours or how long does that take in terms of the work?
It varies quite a lot. For example, Dunwich, we spent, I think, 4 or 5 months writing. And I say we because I kept sending the scripts to Jeff. We did, I think, 3 or 4 versions of that script.
What, Jeff kept rejecting them?
Not rejecting.
I'm teasing. I'm teasing.
It's what if we do this?
Fine tuning. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I have strong points as a storyteller. Jeff also has other strong points as a storyteller, and we do this back and forth to kind of polishing everything out. Try to get the best out of both.
Well, that's fun too. You guys keep using that word, by the way, and I love that because you're obviously having a blast creating these stories, these audio dramas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very fun, and it's a lot of work to answer the question. On average, we take a month to do everything.
Mm-hmm.
However, for example, we are now working on the very old folk from Lovecraft, And we are thinking about adapting Rats on the Walls, which also has a little Roman connection. So since writing The Very Old Folk last month, I already started thinking and commenting with Jeff, commenting with Aaron, which is a history professor that is part of the team of voice actors. So he helps us around with some stuff to try to create an original story that connect those two, for example. So a lot of the ideas start during production of other episodes, but from like to start to finish an episode, like, okay, we're gonna do this, roughly a month, give or take. Sometimes if it is a more complex episode, we take a little bit
Yeah.
more. If it is an easier one, a little bit less, but roughly a month to make one episode.
Well, I'm being half serious, half not, but I'll throw in the Night Ocean as a request sometime. But I think it might be one of those stories that's very hard to do as an audio drama. Are you guys familiar with that one? Probably are. The
I'm not
Lovecraft
very
and
familiar,
Barlow.
but
It's
No,
about
the-
this. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go on.
No, are you familiar with it, Jeff?
I believe so. It's a Barlow story, right?
Yeah, Lovecraft
Yeah.
and Barlow. It's about this painter who takes vacation on, in a basically in an isolated Florida cabin on the coast, and most of the story he's absolutely by himself. But it's one of those slowly revealing possibly what's behind the curtain of reality stories. It's one of my favorite short stories. So, but anyway, you remember and this is true of so many audio dramas, guys, but like for example in Mystery Theater when they do a scene and then they'll do a certain type of music or just a hit of something, and without anyone saying so, that music is basically saying, okay, some time has passed in between what just happened and what's happening now. Is that challenging? Or you guys know what I'm talking about there?
Yes, it is a lot of there's a lot of thinking that goes to making a soundtrack, especially for
Yeah.
this kind of reason.
Yeah.
The soundtrack is, I think I mentioned here as well, it is a form of storytelling, and we do have some associations of things. So we can have a thematic association. So, for example, if I choose a particular instrument, it can bring you to a particular culture or time in history or that sort of stuff, and as well as emotions. So I can play happy music, I can play sad music, I can play weird music, and I can play around with concepts. And doing transitions, especially for audio drama, I would say it's an art because it's I think the it's bridging two different situations
Right.
in a way that works nicely.
Transitions, that's the word. Yes, absolutely.
So musical transitions are definitely one of the hardest parts of, at least from my experience, of making, because I can make a soundtrack under a scene, and I can just kind of copy the energy, the emotions and everything of the scene, and it will work. But when I have the soundtrack by itself having to be that bridge, do I want to feel like time has passed? Do I want to feel that time has not passed? Do I want to feel we're going to another location? So he's traveling. It's the same place, but in the future.
Right.
How does that feel? And being able to tell that without the support of the voice actors and the text is definitely a challenge.
It's a musical form of showing instead of telling, show.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I think our horror at Red Hook is a great example because Victor came up with these great musical cues and scene transitions for some of those real gaps in time when the scene wasn't immediately following on the previous. And those little musical interludes really set the atmosphere. They're just amazing.
You guys familiar with the Price of Fear, starring Vincent Price? Audio drama from I think it was the late 70s. So
Vaguely familiar.
They're very good. You can just Google them. They're just great. If you do, some of them have Vincent Price starring as himself in a fictional situation, and those are the absolute best ones. There are several that are still good, but it's just better when he's the main character or one of the main characters. Anyway, the show was called The Price of Fear, starring Vincent Price. So you see what they did there. And it is definitely worth a listen for any fan of audio drama. But then back in the day, a lot of these stories they converted or they adapted from older horror stories. And then in this little anthology here from 1976, they reprinted some of those stories. And Vincent Price introduced the book. And I'm looking at his introduction here. And the thing about this that makes it so amazing and ironic with what he says that I'm about to read is, of course, everyone knows Vincent Price, movie actor, all kinds of mediums that he performed in. But then he says in this, and when he says radio, obviously today you'd read that as audio drama. He says, radio is my favorite entertainment medium. I really mean this, though I've had a go at most of the others: stage, cinema, television, even musical comedy, and the lecture platform. But all of us who have worked in radio in its great days in America and its still great days in the UK are devoted to it for so many reasons that it's hard to list them all. Radio is the neatest of all the showbiz media. Neat seems a funny way to describe it, but it's, well, just neat. It'd be better if Vincent Price was reading this, but you're stuck with me. There doesn't seem to be that disturbing, unnerving waste of time, which is so much a part of film work. And then he goes on to say, skipping ahead, but what makes radio, audio drama, really exciting is the all-around creativity of it. The writer creates the original, then the director creates the ambiance for the actors, and the brilliant technicians who manipulate the tape, styles, sounds, and music create the atmosphere. But the most creative of all participants in the joy of radio are the listeners, the audience. While we in the broadcasting studio are giving our all to them, they in turn are truly creating us. The listener is the set designer, costumer, makeup man, and even casting department. They see the characters they hear, then put them into the drama, quite literally, in makeup, into the set, the wardrobe, even the mood and atmosphere. I just thought that was I really thought that was so neat to read, especially given that audio drama was his favorite form of entertainment, though he did so much more than that. So,
And in that description, I think was really spot on of the audience filling in all those the sets and the costume and
right. So how many audio dramas do you guys have out there at the moment, and what's next?
At the moment, we have 9 episodes.
Okay.
We're working on the 10th, and we have a couple more already planned. Like I mentioned here, we are doing The Very Old Folk currently, story set in Roman times,
Right.
which has been a completely different set of atmospheres and ideas to translate to the format than 1920s America, for example. And we intend to make a little arc, because a fun part of doing an anthology is being able to tell different stories with different ideas, different character arcs and everything. But it's also fun to find small ways to connect them. Maybe a character that appears on one reappears on another one, or there's a little reference, makes everything feel a little bit more connected. And we are on this little character arc of Lucius, which is Lovecraft's main character in The Very Old Folk, which is a Roman official. And we want to connect like The Very Old Folk with Rats on the Walls, which we're planning, using this character with an intermediate story to make that bridge on it. So that's the plan for the future right now. The script of the second episode is already written. Sorry.
I was just saying, what a neat idea, that bridge character.
Yeah, it's a bridge character. I am a huge fan of history, so I'm having a blast writing stories related to more ancient times. And these bridge stories, I'm not gonna give too many spoilers, but it's going to involve the history of Arminius and Varus and the Battle of Teutoburg Forest, which was one of the worst Roman defeats of all time, and build that bridge to
Give me back my legion, or give me back my legions.
give you back my legions. Yes, exactly. We are actually currently casting for Emperor Augustus, and if I remember correctly, one of the casting lines for the potential voice actors to send is "Publius Quintilius Varus, give me back my legions," so we can hear.
So there are other groups over the years that have done radio dramas, like one in Atlanta and one in New York City. Those are particularly good. But the most famous, I guess, is H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society. Now, they started out is they met, I guess, in college. They were both theater majors, and they both liked Lovecraft, and the the society evolved out of their shared experiences. But they have sort of evolved from just writing a radio drama to now performing them live at conventions. It's not at all uncommon for them to do 2 or 3 performances, say at the Necronomicon or the film festival. Now, logistically, that's more difficult for you two because you don't even live in the same country. But have you thought about like trying to take this to the level of like you're going to do a live radio play, as it were, in front of a live audience?
It's not something we have discussed, although I think it would be a very interesting proposition for the future. But like I said, I think it's a bit hard because we're on different sides of the planet, basically. Me here in Europe and Jeff in the United States. But I think it's another incredible way to appreciate those stories, changing the medium a little bit to something live, almost like a play, or a middle of the way between a play and an audio drama, a live reading, or something like that. It's definitely something that if we have the resources and the capability of doing, it's not out of the table at all.
But it's so
And we have
amazing,
talked
isn't it?
about other things, you know, like an what do they call them? Kind of the action comics where there's
Oh,
partially
yeah.
animated. Something along those lines would be a fun project, if not a full-blown film. But
Well, and it's so amazing too, and I think people sometimes just get too used to it. The fact that you guys are separated so far by distance, as we all are right here, and yet we can collaborate, we can meet, we can chat. You guys can create these incredible audio dramas. So
and our cast is from all over as well.
yeah.
And that's kind of this, you know, the miracle of the internet. We can pull all these people together who have, you know, passion for audio drama, for Lovecraft, for voice acting, and you know, our we've kind of developed this ensemble cast, and it's just amazing.
Any other questions for these guys? Emma, Morgan, anyone? I'll take that as a no. Guys, thanks for being so understanding last Sunday, and thanks for coming in the second hour in this and telling us about the Eldritch episodes.
The pleasure is ours. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You guys are, you know, I've heard, as I'm sure you have, some pretty, since this is the internet age, some pretty Mickey Mouse audio dramas that are just not done very well. And Victor, was it you who emailed me initially to tell me about it? I get a lot of emails like that, so I didn't want it to. It was as I say, I love audio drama, and I didn't want to wait until I could get to it, you know, with everything else in front of it. And I'm not sure if I told you or not, but I immediately that same day, I sent the audio drama links to my Patreons and
Mhm.
said, "Hey guys, will you, give this a listen?" And it was every response was overwhelmingly positive. So you guys are really, to the audience, to everyone listening right now, these are really good audio dramas, and I'm picky. So, and
I'm
so is
happy
Matt,
to
by the
hear
way.
that. Yeah, and this is ultimately why we do this. It's again goes back for me being a dungeon master playing tabletop RPGs with my friends.
Yeah,
I am a storyteller, and I like the people to enjoy the stories I tell. So having that kind of feedback, having from all the comments we've been getting positively, from everybody we spoke to that spoke well of the show, this is what fuels us. Is we're glad we we gave you guys a good experience.
yes,
And although
definitely.
we do horror, we made you guys have fun at least. And this is ultimately why we do what we do.
Well,
This is a passion project for us, and
yeah,
Victor's talents, we would be nowhere without him. And yes, there's a lot of poor efforts out there, and with the rise of AI cranking out
oh
just
God,
sludge,
yeah, don't get
we're
us started
we are
on
all
that, right,
human
Morgan?
actors. We are all human writers and artists. Well, except for the thing in that Mego brain cylinder, but
Uh, well, thanks, guys. To everyone watching, listening later, whatever, I've got a link to the Eldritch episodes in the show notes right near the top.
check
I've
us out.
Yes, do that. It's very good. I wouldn't have had them on otherwise. Same with Morgan Sylvia. I've got a link to her book, The Withering Hours, Dark Folk Horror. Check that out, and after you read that, check out the rest of her work too. So, and thanks again, Alan and Emma. Thanks for being on here too. Always really good
Thank
to see you.
you. Thank you for having me.
I'm thrilled you were here. Thank you. Matt.
Yes, one last mention. We have a terrific prize. You could win a copy of the Starry Wisdom Library for PS Publishing, brainchild of Nate Peterson. Send an email to ezineprizes@gmail.com and put Starry in the subject line. We'll draw a winner in, I don't know, 6 to 8 weeks, and it could be you.
I'm sorry. Speaking of audio, one very last 20-second quick thing here. I just started a playlist on the Lovecraft eZine YouTube channel. I've got one video on there now, and I'll probably do several a week. And it's just me reading quotes from horror books, dark fiction that I like. So, um, speaking of passion projects, so check that out too. So, thanks again, Morgan, Jeff, Emma, Victor, and appreciate it. Hope everyone has a good night.